Bold, addictive, weird, unapologetically Stray Kids. These are just a few words that I'd use to describe Stray Kids' latest comeback, Maniac, and their mini-album, Ordinary. After I'd first heard the song, I rushed to Microsoft Word to try and write down my own thoughts, and I realised very quickly that I really just didn't have the words to describe how truly insane this comeback was. It's been a few days now though, and after finding whatever brain cells I have left after Stray Kids destroyed them, today I'm going to be reviewing the Maniac comeback and the album. In all seriousness though, for some context, I am a Stay myself. My favourite title from Stray Kids is Miro, and up until 2 days ago, my favourite B-side was Be Me. I've been listening to Stray Kids since 2020, and I discovered them through their OST titled Top for the anime Tower of God, and they're one of the most unique artists I've ever heard, whether it be Western music or K-pop. Now for those of you guys who are here, welcome to the channel. My name is Locke, 안녕하세요, 저는 록기입니다, and I hope that you enjoyed today's review. Today, I'll go through my thoughts on the title, and also briefly talk about the music video, a beast which, in itself, is deserving of a whole video on its own. Following this, I'll go through the album, talk about some things I noticed, and also cover some thoughts I have just on this era as a whole for the group. Here, I just want to reiterate that this is all a matter of personal opinion though, and people are bound to have different opinions on the subject. At the end of the day, the beauty of music and appreciating it is the multiple different takes from multiple different people that you can receive, and so negativity or hatred towards the artists or people in the comments isn't tolerated over here. With that said though, I hope that you enjoy whatever organized chaos this video is going to be. I apologize in advance. Honestly, going into the MV release, like most other stays, I really had no idea what to expect from the song. This time around, JYPE had done such an incredible job of disguising and concealing the song in their teasers, and the hook was all fans got in the first MV teaser, a move I think that was actually really quite smart. In doing this, the level of anticipation pending the song's release was huge, a perfect marketing strategy to keep not only fans, but also casual listeners curious to tune in on release day. On top of this being an ironclad marketing strategy, by the time the chorus dropped in the MV, everyone who had seen the teaser just once knew exactly how to latch on and sing to the hook, making the song a catchy hit from the outset. I guess you could almost say that the song was quite literally very quickly drilled into our heads. Now moving on from this, I have to admit that having listened to Stray Kids' discography no matter how many times now, I can't say that I've been this shocked by a title track on the first listen since Side Effects. We've had some incredible songs come out the last few years like God's Menu and Thunderous, but we haven't had anything quite as crazy as this. Put simply, I was completely stunned. When the song started, I'm not entirely sure exactly what I expected right off the bat, but the beat for the first verse was much brighter than I thought it would be. The pre-choruses throughout were rap heavy, and like I'll touch on soon, told a story of their own. Reaching the chorus, here, again, I expected something incredibly dirty. Just as we got there though, as you're about to stand up out of your metaphorical seat, out of nowhere the sound of a drill and the trill of a bird pushes you back into your seat to completely just accept the insanity that is the anti-drop chorus. This dark and deep bass line coupled with Felix's deep voice hits so damn hard despite the instrumental remaining sparse, and just as you get used to how the chorus sounds, it picks up in pace with Hyunjin in the first chorus, and then Minho in the second later in the song. Honestly, this is one of my favourite choruses from them, hands down. Throughout the chorus, Chan's voice floats in the background, with Han and Changbin sounding crazed with their ad-libs. On the first listen, the chorus was great, but the second was even better, and this is just repeated to the point where I honestly cannot get enough of this addictive beat. Now on top of this, one thing I love about this track is how expertly smooth the transitions are. The builds are well sustained, but moving from such a dark and energetic anti-drop chorus back into the much brighter verses is a skill in itself. What it shows to me is that the song has two different personalities, those which you could argue resemble Jekyll and Hyde. For those not familiar with this anecdote, the story of Jekyll and Hyde is one where Dr. Jekyll, a fictional character who suffers with an evil alternate personality, struggles with and involuntarily changes into Mr. Hyde, his alter ego who commits acts of evil. The structure of the song also builds on this as well to some extent, as the verses can be seen to depict a much brighter, more normal Jekyll. The pre-choruses, however, coupled with their building intensity and lyrics, can represent the change into Hyde taking place. And then following Felix's "This is how I change" warning line, the chorus, coupled with the drill and bird sounds, represent the final transformation into Hyde. Following the chorus, the beat, like Jekyll and Hyde, seemingly just changed back to normal without incident, closely mirroring the story. Whether this is directly intentional or if I'm just imagining things, this is easily one of my favourite things about listening to the song. The additional references of Frankenstein throughout the lyrics, and also the idea of unleashing your inner maniac, being quite on brand for Stray Kids as a positive message to be yourself and let out who you really are all the things that make this title a 10 out of 10 for me. As I said earlier, my favourite title by Stray Kids is Miro, and at this point, I'm worried it might eventually get dethroned. That's how good this song is. Moving on to the MV, I truly mean it when I say that this music video is just absolutely insane and deserves a video all on its own. I don't know if I even have the capacity to make one myself, but I'd love to attempt one on Stray Kids' lore, maybe one day. Regardless, on the topic of lore, this MV is filled with it. I won't be able to do the entire MV justice here, but I'll just point out some parts that I absolutely loved and thought were interesting. First, the opening establishing shot of Hyunjin standing between the two cities is simply amazing, it's breathtaking. What I'll call the JYPE universe seems to be taking shape, and the cinematic quality of this MV is so good, you can tell that the budget for this was huge. Following this universe type theory, a theme throughout the MV that becomes subtly obvious is that Stray Kids are moving between what seems to be parallel worlds. Transitions are clean, and scenes change rapidly, depicting members during the day, then suddenly at night, and sometimes standing upright, other times upside down. The MV is chaotic, thus matching the song quite well, and at many times has symbols popping up everywhere, many of them seemingly references to previous Stray Kids titles or MVs. Here, we see the use of purple flames, similar to the blue ones used in Thunderous, what seems to be the set of My Pace during Chan's first verse, and even choreography which seems to call back to God's Menu. There was, however, two things that I found particularly interesting about the MV, and these are the following. During the start of the chorus at the drop, Felix is depicted with something on his finger, nothing other than the symbol Evil Eye. For those not quite sure of what this is, the Evil Eye is an ancient symbol of protection used to bring bad luck to those whom it's directed at. One thing that Stray Kids are notorious for doing with their music is embedding clapbacks at their haters and speaking out on how they'll continue to do just what they want, and this could very well be another sign of this. The goal of this symbol is to direct negative energy back at whoever the intended target is, most times the source of negativity itself. Whether this is intended or not is just speculation on my part, but I thought that this was interesting to theorize on. In addition to this, one other thing that I thoroughly enjoyed thinking about was that perhaps JYPE are starting to move towards the idea of world building. Now, Stray Kids have always had their own story, but recently, other groups such as JYPE's New Rookies NMIXX have gone deep into this too. What's peculiar about this MV though, is that many of the visual motifs and references present in NMIXX's debut also seem to appear here as well. Both MVs almost seem to be set in the same city, and the set that Stray Kids dance in front of during the chorus of Maniac resembles NMIXX's debut MV as well. In addition to this, animals are present in both MVs, with birds being in the Maniac MV during the choruses flying around, but for NMIXX, fish are the motif instead. Now this assumption might very well be a complete stretch, but the MVs are similar enough and carry a seemingly similar direction even down to the more experimental nature of the songs. Regardless of these assumptions though, I love the MV, but I can find just one criticism with it. At first listen, it was even more difficult for me to fully appreciate the song in its entirety, as the MV is in itself a sensory overload. Now don't get me wrong, both can be enjoyed together, but to begin with, I needed to listen to the song on Spotify to completely grasp everything on the audible front before I could continue dealing with the visual. That being said though, the members all looked immaculate, and if there's one thing that they're incredible at, it's acting. Who said Stray Kids acting era? We need it soon. As for the album, my review of this is really simple. It's honestly just a masterclass in how a mini album should be done. Much like the title of this video says, it is just an unapologetic, completely authentic body of work which isn't trying to be something that it is not. I've talked about this at great length in my reaction videos and even to others as well, but this album, and of course also its sound signature, are direct proof of the fact that Stray Kids intentionally deviate from the norm in order to set their own standard. Never have I ever heard, nor could I have imagined that a 4th generation boy group would be capable of single-handedly reviving dubstep for me with Freeze, all the while dropping a 90s West Coast hip-hop throwback like Muddy Water in place of the typical final track ballad. Overall, I think that this album is best described as a kaleidoscope. Each song showcases a different characteristic of Stray Kids, and the members themselves are able to showcase themselves on each and every one of them. Throughout the album, we see a variety of flavors from the Stray Kids menu: trap, dubstep and EDM, pop punk, old school hip hop, just to name a few, and I feel like this variation of sounds is a concrete reminder of why it is that I personally fell in love with their music in the first place. As far as thoughts on each of the tracks are concerned, I honestly really enjoyed all of them, but as is common with any album, I enjoyed some more than I enjoyed others. Starting first with Venom, much like its name, it has this sticky, spiderweb-like quality to it, which almost sends chills up the listener's spine when you listen to it. It's not quite the most pleasant image to paint, but the distortion in the beat and the ascending progression in the verses and the chorus reminds me of a spider creeping towards its prey. This is a quality which, while uncomfortable, is something I really enjoy about the song, but by far my favourite section is the breakdown following the second chorus. Here, the what sounds to be distorted brass almost paints an image of lightning and thunder cracking in the background, and I personally love the texture and the atmosphere that is created here. I think this song is very good at painting an image in the listener's mind, all whilst being a track that could be playlisted as well. For Charmer, listening to it truly feels like you've been transported immediately to the desert, and this is most apparent during the chorus. I really enjoy this song, but the chorus is quite minimal compared to the way it builds. It took me a few listens to appreciate this for what it is, but what really sells me about this song is the lyrics. The song focuses on Stray Kids' success as a group, and is essentially a hype song about how their music is irresistible. This harkens back to much of their previous music, with Cheese being the main example, and the idea of you hate it but you still listen coming to mind. Here, they also reference Maniac by saying loosen another screw. For the lyrics alone, I love the song, but I came to really appreciate the sound more after a few listens. Now Freeze, Freeze. This is my favourite track on the whole album. If I could use one lyric from the song to describe it, it would be step out, doing what I want. That's exactly what this song is. It's them doing whatever they like with their music, and in going down arguably one of the most noisiest of routes, this track directly embodies Stray Kids' unapologetic approach towards the production of their music. Despite the criticism that they receive for their sound at times, coupled with the fact that this genre has been so overdone and almost completely run into the ground over the years, 3RACHA managed to not only single-handedly do dubstep justice, but also make it fit K-pop in 2022. Much like Maniac, the song is hectic, but ends abruptly, and this quality is what makes it one of my favourite tracks on the album. As far as Stray Kids' discography is concerned, one of my favourite tracks from Stray Kids is still Side Effects, and I'm so glad to see Freeze, its cousin, here on this album. As for Lonely Street, this was honestly an unexpected hit for me. Watching the track video, I was excited, but the pop-punk vibe is once again one that I think has been overdone a lot, not only within K-pop, but just in general. Despite this though, the stylistic auto-tune and the resemblance this song gives me to Changbin's Streetlight made me really enjoy it a lot. Beyond the actual sound, once again, something Stray Kids never fall short with is their lyricism. I said that this reminds me much of Streetlight, and you can hear this almost all the way throughout the song. Streets are mentioned everywhere in the lyrics, but in particular during verse 1 the lyrics go, "This lonely road with not a single light, the street lamp broke a long time ago." And whilst this is led by Hyunjin when he sings, Changbin seems to be doubling in the back. In addition to this, with both Changbin and Chan behind this song, much like they were for Streetlight as well, I feel that even though the two tracks may not be directly tied together, when Changbin and Chan make music like this, it's almost always guaranteed to be emotional. Overall, this song really caught me by surprise, and I loved it way more than I thought I would when I finally heard the full song. Now just before I get to Waiting for Us, I just want to preface that when it comes to fan songs, I generally find it quite difficult to connect, depending on the group and how closely I follow them. I generally think that some fan songs can be quite generic, and as a listener of faster and perhaps sounds that aren't as bright, I tend not to listen to them that much. Stray Kids, however, is an exception, given the fact that this group is my ultimate boy group, and honestly one of my favourite K-pop groups in general. The acoustic ballad style of the song is easy to listen to, and the chorus hits much harder with just the right amount of punch. Paired with the lyrics about blooming and approaching spring, a season of growth and prosperity, this song says to me that Stray Kids have endured the hard winter that has been the past 2 years, and are now ready to bloom again with their fans. They do this all the while acknowledging that things have been hard on both ends, and sincerely communicate this to the listener. I love this song for what it is, but it's not the type of sound I listen to a lot, as I have to be in a really specific mood. I have it playlisted, but I don't think that I'll actually search out for it, unless I'm trying to reduce myself to a paddle pop on the road on a 45-degree summer's day. Now last, but most certainly not least, is Muddy Water, and to put a long story short, this song is one of the riskiest tracks on the album, but perhaps the best executed. I've never heard a K-pop group to date attempt 90s West Coast style hip-hop like this, let alone pull it off, but here Stray Kids are, taking leaves out of the Wu-Tang Clan and Nas's books. Not only is the beat a certified vibe, but the lyrics are just as good. From my perspective, the song itself is a clapback at those who try and step to Stray Kids and speak badly on their craft. The members, especially Felix in his first verse, convey this when he says, "Energetic youngster like me loves playing in muddy water." Here, the mud is the equivalent of criticism, and this is reminiscent of the idiom to throw mud on one's face, meaning to criticize someone. Felix describes that he washes this mud off and is cleaner than it is, but just as children love playing and jumping around in puddles, he too loves playing in muddy water, hitting back at criticism. Now for this song, I honestly feel like I could dedicate an entire video to breaking it down, but a few more quick details I loved were Hyunjin's direct reference to Double Knot and My Pace at the end of his first verse. This song oozes confidence and once again is a perfect example of the fact that Stray Kids, and moreover 3RACHA, can really do almost anything. Now for this section, I thought I'd add a bit of a statistical commentary and pair it up with some things that I have noticed about Stray Kids just in general. I just want to disclaim that I am purely talking just about Stray Kids, and any discussion of other artists or focuses on them will not be present in this section. First, this is without a doubt Stray Kids' biggest era yet. No Easy was already everything to scream about, but within just a couple of hours, Ordinary surpassed No Easy's first day album sales, and the first day sales in total for Ordinary amounted to around 496,000 copies. At debut, Maniac and all B-sides charted within the top 8 on Bugs, all 7 tracks charted in the top 20 on Genie just 2 days after its release, and the MV so far has received almost 20 million views in just under 48 hours. Now these numbers are quite interesting to me, especially album sales, as their growth honestly just seems unstoppable. Go Live, which was arguably the album that really gained them a hell of a lot of attention, came in with 128,000 first week sales, In Life with 233,000, No Easy with almost 650,000 in the first week, and after just 2 days, Ordinary sits at 535,000. There's no doubt that Kingdom affected the group in terms of exposure, and we saw this with No Easy becoming the group's first ever million-seller album. But the speed at which Ordinary has not only caught up, but also threatens to overtake No Easy with a reported 1.3 million pre-orders is simply crazy. This brings me to an interesting point where I think about the future of the 4th generation of K-pop and what it will look like even beyond this. Every comeback I see, not only as a fan of K-pop, but also as a reviewer, I'm often left puzzled as to how we can continue to push the envelope even further and do what hasn't been done before. K-pop has incredible longevity as an industry, as it's almost never stale, and Stray Kids themselves are representatives of this idea as well. As a result, when I think of representative 4th generation boy groups, Stray Kids, along with a few specific others, come to mind immediately. As a fan though, the one factor that continues to blow me away about not only this group but also the level of success that they have achieved is that Stray Kids are self-produced, making their music organically theirs, their brainchildren, if you like. With this, their music is made to fit the members, not the other way around, and their passion for producing quality and quantity is what has got them to where they are today. I'm not entirely sure what the next comeback is going to look like, but if there's one thing I do know for sure, it's that Stray Kids have now reached a turning point in their careers. There's no doubt that the No Easy era was directly indicative of the support that they'd received during Kingdom, but Ordinary is without a doubt Stray Kids' global recognition era. People talk about defining moments all the time, and the release of Maniac and Ordinary, I think, is one. Well guys, that's it for my review of Maniac and Ordinary. I really wanted to get this out sooner, but I had so much to say about this, and with Stray Kids being my ultimate boy group, I wanted to do them justice in making this video. As I've mentioned, this comeback is their craziest yet, and whilst this might be controversial of me to say, I actually think that this is their strongest album for me, even considering their full-length ones. I feel like Ordinary has all the characteristics, flavours, and strengths of a full album, just condensed and perfectly presented in 7 tracks, and it makes listening to this honestly just such a good ride. There's just something about Maniac that is incredibly addictive, and right now, I can't get enough of it. That being said, after the Ordinary era has concluded, I'll be looking at doing another review, perhaps just a little bit shorter, just on how it compared and also where Stray Kids fit in the 4th generation landscape. I've also mentioned this on my other channel too, but this year I also plan on making a documentary style video essay for Stray Kids, covering their history from debut up until now. If you enjoyed today's review and would like to see more videos for Stray Kids like this, and of course other K-pop artists and K-pop topics, then please consider subscribing and also make sure to give the video a like as well. In terms of the album and of course this comeback, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the album as well down below, so please let me know, and of course remember at all times to be respectful of one another and each other's opinions. Thanks so much once again as always for tuning in, and until next time, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.